Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 4th of March, and yes, I want to talk about don't waste your prayers on them, on our esteemed leaders, or even on world peace, because that prayer is a waste of energy. I want to show you this here. But I also want to talk about practical Christianity, and that is being the people of the way. I want to show you what happened all the way back then, why there was such a tohu vabohu about Christianity, and it had actually less to do with the spiritual teaching than the material outcome. I want to show you all of this here. It is the way that will save us. So let me say first of all, don't waste your prayers on them, because they ward them off as the evil eye. Because what they do is they have their eyes firmly on an outcome, their intention that should come, that should create the material reality. And they have total tunnel vision on that. Because that is what they do, and that in a way is the way, only in a bad way. So whatever energy you put toward them, well, if it is the energy of hate or negative energy, they might even suck that up, because it will aid them. They need aggression right now to push through what they're pushing through. They need that energy, so they might suck that up. But positive energy, compassion, love, they're closed to that. To them, in a really screwed way, to them that is the evil eye, because it would move them away from their intention. It would be a destruction. It is energy that will not serve them at the moment, so they won't have it. They are actually working what is being taught. Only they work it, as I said, toward the intention of world dominion. But they are working it. So don't waste your prayers on them. Either way, we must see each other. And this is what I want to talk about, the people of the way. Now, I have made videos about this years ago, and at the time it kind of got lost. But maybe now it will become more relevant, because times have changed. And they are getting worse at the moment, and I know it is, because it's already impacting here in small ways. Where I had managed to order some heating oil, I think just over a week ago now. Only managed to get 200 liters, but to get me over another few weeks, couple of weeks, 4 weeks maybe. And now a work colleague of mine has ordered the same amount a couple of days ago, and she already paid over £40 more than I did, only a week ago. So things will get hard. The longer this is going on, the harder it will get for all of us. The impacts will be felt by us, not by them, because they're raking it in. War is good for profit. So, now I want to show you, as I said, I made this video years ago and it got lost. Maybe it's more relevant now, maybe people will listen now. What Christians actually did, and they did more than pray. They actually did something material. And you can see that in the Bibles, that in bits and pieces of what they did. And if you look at the structure, Rome, and even amongst the Jews at the time, the structure has not changed. You had the temple, the authority, you had the rich merchants, You had the money lenders. So what you have there, well, in the Jewish system, the religious authority was also the secular authority. They were one at that time. But still, you had the authority, you had the law, you had the rich merchants, which are now the corporations. You had the money lenders, which is the banks. There you have the unholy trinity. And things haven't changed. They've just taken on a new form. They have given themselves new labels, but it's still the same system. So what Christians did at the time, I mean, okay, Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. That means pay your taxes to Caesar. Reason for that being is, do not go up against them. Do not break the law. Because if you break the law, they will destroy you. They are the stronger. But they did a lot of things that was not breaking the law. And here is why I would say the whole system got so miffed with them. It was not the spiritual teaching, but the material outcome. Because they bypassed the temple, the merchants, the moneylenders, by giving to each other. It was basically an economy within an economy. I mean, for starters, they did obviously not buy animals for sacrifice, which that would be a big loss to the temple and the merchants inside of the temple. They did not give their alms or their money, their charity to the temple. Again, that's a big money spinner. Charities, even in this day and age, they are massive money spinners, and only very little trickles through to the people that actually need it, or that it is supposed to be for. There was no difference then. Yeah, you give your alms to the temple, and the temple is trickling a little bit back to the poor, to be seen to be doing something, because they had to, but most of it would have gone into their coffers. So they didn't give to the temple or to charities, they gave to each other. They probably did not sell their produce to the merchants. Again, which is what's happening now. Farmers sell to the supermarkets. And again, farmers are getting squeezed. The supermarkets are the ones that make the money. The merchants were the ones that make the money. They sold to each other. They did not get the money of the money lenders. They lent the money to each other, or gave it to each other when they could. Yeah, give if you can, and if not, make it a fair price. So, I mean, as far as the money lenders are concerned, we're already doing this in this family. If you look at our accounts, there's a steady stream of money going around in circles between the family members. We give to each other, or we lend to each other. And really, with the understanding the money has to be paid back, but then if it's not paid back on the day, we're obviously not threatening each other with repossession, and we're not charging interest. It's another big thing. We are not charging interest, obviously, to each other. So that's cutting out the money lenders, that's cutting out the bank. And that is the people of the way. That is not just prayer, that is actually doing something. Yeah, that is actually a way of living that is cutting out officialdom by giving to one another without interest, without charging interest, and in a fair way. Now, let me just think. What's my thread? Yeah, at the time, that would have obviously been a threat. They were losing money. Yeah, I know the temple sent out spies to see what the spiritual teaching was at the time. Yeah? But they wanted to know the spiritual teaching because they were suffering the material outcome. If there had been no outcome for them on the material level, they wouldn't have cared. So, and it is a way of living. It must become a way of living. People of the way, a way of living that cuts out worship in the temple, that cuts out the mighty. Now, one of the biggest, and here's the thing, do not form groups. And whatever you do, do not give yourself labels. There is no need for groups. If each, you're already in groups, you're in family groups, you're in friendship groups, that's all that is needed. And there is already bonds between the people in those groups. But, as I said before, like my children have friends, their friends have friends. At some point you don't even know the people anymore, but the web is there. The web of connections is there, and it will work itself through the web, even if you know them or not. But each person should concentrate on what is directly around them. Directly around them. Because none of us, again, there is not one that is sent to save the world. It is not asked of us to save the world, only to keep our own house in order as far as it reaches. And that is what we should do. And I said, do not form groups, do not give yourself a label. That was the biggest mistake Christianity made. That's what destroyed it, making it official. Because as soon as you make something official, officialdom will have a hold on what it is you're doing. See, at the time, it is not against the law. They did not have to sell to the merchants. It's not against the law to sell to one another. So officialdom could do nothing about it. They did not have to give their alms to the temple, or in our case, to charities. It is not against the law to give to one another. Yeah? Or to help one another. Or to lend money to one another. It's not against the law. So there was actually nothing they could get the law could get a hold on. Until it had grown that big and then gave itself the label of Christianity. And that's when they were destroyed, because then the only thing the law had to do is go up against the label. And everybody under that label would be persecuted. And it didn't matter if they individually had broken any laws, because most likely they didn't. Yeah? I think they were very careful about that, not to go up against the law. And as I said, if something was due to Caesar, they would pay it, taxes. So not to let the law have something to get a hold on. I think they were just very careful that there were no taxes due. That is what we must do. And that must become a way of living. Focus away from them. Focus away from the churches. Focus away from the banks. And focus on each other. See each other. So at that time, as I said, when they outlawed the label of Christianity and persecuted the Christians for a while, I think the problem that Rome, and it was mainly coming from Rome then, the real problem Rome was having was they couldn't feed them to the lions on the one end fast enough as they were joining at the other end. It was still growing. So they made an official religion, which again took the focus away from each other and all eyes on Jesus, and you have to be saved. Just sit there and believe that you're saved and your reward will be in heaven. Heaven is what we should create here. It's not somewhere else. Life is here. Heaven is here. This is the temple of the living God, your body. So whatever we create, we must create here, but we must look at each other. And for that, our focus we are like deers in the headlight, staring at them. And yeah, we're being drained. That's what it says in the book of the Revelation, who can do war with the mighty beast, who can go up against it. Especially if the singular person looks at that. There's nothing you can do. So stop looking at it. Look at each other. Love your neighbor as yourself. That was the biggest thing in Christianity. Love your neighbor as yourself. It wasn't love Jesus. Follow Jesus. It was love your neighbor as yourself. And I said it was not just prayer, it was practiced, material. The two had to come together, the spirit and the material, to create something that was actually real. Nothing that was real at the time, and it was a threat to the powers that be. And I think where they felt it the most was that it was a material threat. And of course the law would have no power over people that are not depending on them, on it. See, if you are depending on officialdom, then there's fear. Because officialdom might very well not give to you. But if your neighbor loves you, then there is no more fear. You don't need them. We don't need them. We are the ones that are producing all the stuff. Yeah? We are the ones that are doing the works. We don't need them. They're like a middleman between us and our prophet. Cut them out. And then, let me go back to prayer. I just want to take this to the higher level again. And that is, in the material, if we can give to each other, we should. We might come to places where we need higher intervention. I mean, that is what happened with miracles, with the healing, stuff like that. So if a higher intervention is needed, because we do no longer know in the material what to do, again, go with the Christ, and here is the real knowledge. Whatsoever you ask for in prayer, instead of asking, know that you have received it, and it will be yours. Be still and know that you have received it. Be still not only for yourself, but for others. I mean, come together and ask, be still for another person. Know that they will have received. Now, there's another group of people here that say, we give you all the answers because we know quantum physics. Yeah, the scientists are going to be the next big rulers because they have all the knowledge. I doubt if Jesus was a quantum physicist. And certainly none of us are. We're not quantum physicists. We don't know how it works. And that is the Christ. You don't have to know how it works. You just need to know that it works. Faith. There is faith. And faith is knowing that it will work without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that the more you practice it, the more it will show itself. But as I have, for the last few days, I have detached from the bloody madness of this world. I'm not longer, people come in here, did you hear what Donald Trump said now? I said, no, I didn't. I didn't listen to him. I didn't listen to any of it. I focused on what we need here. And that is where your focus should be, away from them. What is it you need? What is it your family needs? What is it your neighbor needs? That is where your focus should be. That is where the energy of your prayer should go. divert your energy away from them and toward each other. Let's create a web. And again, it's not worship, it's experience. Experiencing it as a way of life. And then you are the people of the way, and then you are true Christians. And if you can go higher than that, you're even greater Christians. And as said, Jesus said, those that were given the most should be the greatest servants to all. Those that have the greatest faith should work that for others, for each other. So I think that is what they were taught at the time. And they practiced it, and they were a threat. They had become a threat to Rome, which was the greatest power on earth at that time. They had actually become a threat to them. So that just shows how powerful this thing could actually be, if it could threaten Rome. As I said, it's not just prayer, it is doing, it is experiencing, it's the material and the spiritual being one. And that's the only thing that will get us out of here, out of this. You know, if we take our attention away from them and toward each other. Anyway, here folks, I leave it at that for today. And I talk to you again soon. Bye.